Hi, I'm Nicole Ferraro, and this is The Divide, a podcast from Light Reading exploring the ongoing digital divide, why and where it still exists, and what needs to be done to get people everywhere connected to reliable, high-speed internet. My guest today is Angela Siefer, Executive Director at the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, or NDIA. We last had Angela on the podcast in 2025 after President Trump took to Truth Social to cancel the $2.75 billion Digital Equity Act, which was passed into law in 2021 as a companion to the $42 billion BEAD program, as a way to fund local initiatives and organizations that help people safely and successfully connect to and use the internet. In today's episode, we catch up with Angela about what the impact of losing the Digital Equity Act funds has been over the last year for NDIA and for organizations on the ground. We also discuss NDIA's decision to sue the Trump administration over the cancellation of those funds and where that lawsuit stands now. And we discuss takeaways from a recent Digital Equity Act Month of Action, which was spearheaded by NDIA, as well as other ways the federal government and states can help support digital equity and inclusion initiatives going forward. All right, Angela, welcome back to the podcast. It is a delight to see you. How you doing?
Hi, Nicole. It's great to see you, and I'm thrilled. I'm having a great day. I'm heading to DC tomorrow. Things are looking pretty positive.
Excellent. Well, that's an optimistic take. It is 9 a.m., so you never know where the day can go, but I'm glad it's great so far. But so is mine, because I'm here with you this morning, and I'm excited to catch up on what's been going on with funding for digital equity and inclusion initiatives. Of course, it's not the best news in the world for the past year or so, but I'm just going to give a quick recap for our listeners. The last time we had you on the podcast was last May 2025. After the president, Donald Trump, signed an executive order or posted a tweet. Was it an executive order? He posted a
No, it was social? A social. Social
okay,
post.
That's right. Another form of governing. He posted on Truth Social that he was terminating the Digital Equity Act, which is a $2.75 billion fund, which has a few different programs within it, which he called racist and illegal. So since then, those funds have essentially been on hold. Your organization had previously been awarded funding through the Digital Equity Act Fund. So I know that NDIA has been trying to resolve this in court, which we'll get back to in a moment. But first, I just wanted to check in with you to just remind our audience about what those funds were supposed to accomplish, and just ask you to give us an update on what the impact of losing the funds has been for NDIA and for local digital inclusion organizations that you guys work with on the ground over the past year plus.
$2.75 billion is pretty exciting, and it was very exciting when it happened. And we have to say also, positive things happened before it got canceled. That every state and territory created a digital equity / opportunity plan. That's amazing. That the research went into that. There was stakeholder engagement, more people who were engaging in the work, but they hadn't been calling it by those terms. So they hadn't necessarily been talking to each other, started talking to each other. So like that positive ecosystem building and more awareness of best practices and what the barriers are in one's community, all of that happened. And we shouldn't dismiss like how awesome that was. The frustrating part then is that we couldn't then we as a country couldn't implement those plans. So that's sad for everybody, for all involved, and for those people that this would have supported. I think the losses are at all levels, right? There's the loss to the country, for the economy, and for businesses. There's the loss at the local level for the communities. And then there's the loss to the individual, right? There's the loss to people who are still struggling to understand what is real online and what's not, who are still trying to figure out how to talk to their doctors and save the 2-hour trip, or even, how to get to the appointment. And I'm still flummoxed by it a bit. Like, who doesn't want grandma to be safe online? Really, like I've never, my field is not one where people are like, you shouldn't be doing what you, okay, that's not true. I actually did get an email like that one time that it had to do with cell phone towers causing some kind, yeah, right. But for the most part,
conspiracy. So
yes, Yes, I did get one of those. But for the most part, didn't think I was in a field where folks disagreed with this work.
Right, right. Well, apparently, when your work is trying to lift up communities, that's considered racist. So, you've been in a racist field apparently
And
this
I had
entire
no idea.
you didn't know.
I had
Um,
no idea.
so I like that take though, because you're right that these plans have been created and they're ready to roll whenever we can set this money free. So let's talk about one way that we hope to see this money set free, which is, like I mentioned earlier, your organization, the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, NDIA. Last October, you guys chose to sue the Trump administration for rescinding the Digital Equity Act competitive grant program, right? Which is the grant program that you guys were due to receive grant funding from. So tell us a bit about an update on where things stand right now, why you chose that avenue, and how you're feeling about it.
Yes. So NDIA was one of 4 organizations that had an actual contract. Like we were doing it. All the T's were crossed and I's were dotted, and it was all in process. And so part of it was that we could take that action. I have board members who joke about the number of emergency board meetings that we were having at the time, because it seemed like one after the other, to talk about, should we engage down this path? Like, is it the best for our field? Is it the best for NDIA? And it was a challenging situation, right? Because this NDIA does not exist to be in lawsuits. We exist because we want to serve people. We are always like 100% clear that what we do is serve the people who are serving their communities. So my team doesn't teach somebody how to use the internet or help them get connected. My team is serving those who do those things. And I have high respect for all these folks on the ground who are in situations where people have lots of other challenges in life, and the digital piece is one piece of that. So I feel like it was a hard decision because it is then not doing what we were intended to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, if we didn't do it, who was going to do it? And so it seemed very appropriate that we take this important stand for the benefit of our membership and for the country overall, because there is a separation of powers, and that is how our democracy was established, and I believe strongly in that. I believe strongly in what's potential for this country, and that we can have a generous spirit and we can support each other in a positive way and not pull each other down. And so if that's the life that we want to, that's the country we want to be living in, then it was the right action to take. Even though I am now like, yeah, things can be rough, Nicole.
That's going to be the title of the episode.
Yeah, things can be rough.
Yeah, no, of course. And I think when he chose to cancel this fund, and it's worth emphasizing, I'll likely say this in the introduction, but let me reemphasize that Congress passed these funds in conjunction with the BEAD program through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act in 2021, and it was signed into law, obviously by a different president, but you can't cancel funds in a social media post as president if they've been passed and signed into law by Congress. And so that's what you guys are trying to rectify here. And you're taking a stand for the rest of the community by doing so. Go ahead.
Can I offer? I think it's also important to note that those funds still exist, right? Just because the administration isn't spending them doesn't mean the Congress didn't allocate them. They did. They're just not being used to support our country for the digital economy that we all live in. So that can be changed at any moment.
Yeah,
we could use them. We could do this good work, and so that's why it's important to have this lawsuit to draw attention to that fact. And what NDIA has also been doing is making sure that we are educating Congress so that the funds do stay there, that they don't rescind them thinking that they are unneeded. And no promises, of course, but we are getting some reassurances that congressional members are not seeing that it's going to be pulled back. So fingers crossed. I don't know, knock on wood, do whatever you need to do.
Everything is Formica around here, but I'll go outside and find a tree in a little while.
Okay, thanks, Nicole.
No problem. Anything I can do for the cause. So before we move on from the lawsuit, is there anything you can tell us about where it is in progress?
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the reason I'm going to DC tomorrow is because we have oral arguments scheduled for the government's motion to dismiss. Here, funny side note, I was thinking I'm going to go, and I thought, have I been in a courtroom before? Seriously, I thought in my head, I thought I had, but I was like, well, when would that be? None. I've just watched enough courtroom dramas. I think I've been in a courtroom, but I actually never have.
Are you going to stand up and yell, "You can't handle the truth"?
No, because the lawyers have told me do not talk.
All right, they're gonna muzzle you. But
they have muzzled me. I have shared this. Gina's coming with me, our deputy director.
Okay, good. Yeah.
No, we are not supposed to talk. But anyhow.
So you have spoken at congressional hearings, which is not too dissimilar. So
I have. And when the time comes to put me on the stand, I will be fully prepared and I am ready to do it. I think that is one of the things that convinced them that NDIA could do this, because I don't mind that. I like it, right? Like, come on, ask me some hard questions.
Yeah, totally.
I help people for a living. What are you going to throw at me? Because this is what I do, is help people.
Right. So, yeah. Okay. So the motion to dismiss. So this is basically a hearing to keep your lawsuit alive.
It is. That's right. And so it will be. I have tried to read the filings, but there's a lot of legalese, Nicole. I'm not a lawyer.
Even with all those courtroom dramas, you can't quite grasp all that language.
I know. You'd have thought. You'd have thought I'd be able to figure it out. Turns out it's heavy. So I'm very curious to sit in the courtroom and hear the oral argument, and I think I'll be able to grasp it a little bit better after having read what I could absorb, and then be able to sit through. And then that after, at that point, I'm told we don't know how quickly the judge will issue their decision, and it could be on parts of what the government's asking for, or right. So there's a lot of possibilities here, and the amount of time it takes is also up in the air. Apparently there's some automated system that after 6 months, the judge, this is just true in general, the judge gets pinged, like, don't forget about this one. Yeah.
Don't forget.
So they're like, well, it could be 6 months.
Okay. Well, I should just say we're talking June 9th. Your oral arguments are on June 10th. This will run a few days later. So if there are any updates, I will note them in the show notes accompanying this episode. And we wish you a lot of luck. But you mentioned a few minutes ago that you're speaking with some members of Congress, which leads well into the next question I have for you, which is that yesterday actually concluded a month-long digital equity month of action, which was organized by you guys, NDIA, and a few other groups, I think. So I want to hear about what the goal was of that effort. I know it included some meetings on the Hill. And how did the month go overall?
Yeah, it was amazing. I cannot tell you how much this month really lifted my spirits.
That's great.
Because I work from home. I do travel, but I work from home. And so I'm not with colleagues day to day. And so being able to go to DC, spend that time with the affiliates that came in, we call them affiliates, these organizations that are running digital inclusion programs in their communities, having about a dozen of them come to DC, and we and our DC partners had scheduled meetings for them, so being able to spend time with them. I was assigned the New York affiliates, so I went into 5 different meetings in one day. It was exhausting.
We're a very tiring group of people to talk to. So,
and they are passionate, and it was amazing. And I can repeat all their stories now because I heard them all 5 times, which was fabulous. But also, what was great about it is that it was also spending time with our DC partners too. And on the meeting prior to the month of action with these, not all DC, but they're national organizations. Many of them do have a DC presence. NDIA does not. Our policy team is in Utah and North Carolina. You purchase
a classic place.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This is where everybody gets their policy talent, right? But you recruit where talent is, and that's what we did, and that's where they live. We get on airplanes when we have to go to DC. But what was really great about it is there must have been 20 organizations on this prep call who were not our affiliates. Like, I know our affiliates care, but these are 20 organizations who do other things, and they recognize the importance of digital equity in the work they do. Civil rights organizations, public interest technology organizations, older adult. Like, it was really a fabulous wide group. And I felt very much like, oh my gosh, we are not alone. We can do this. And then being in DC and going to the different meetings and hearing these other partners when they were going into meetings with the affiliates, and then hearing the affiliates and the partners be able to relay mostly positive, whether it was Republican or Democrat. We are at, when you really talk to folks about what it is to work in a digital inclusion program, and really, it comes back to nobody disagrees. It comes back to, of course, we want people to be able to use technology safely for their jobs and their health and their education. It becomes a yes, of course. And so that's what was happening in those meetings. But we were also getting some feedback of folks wanting to work on bills or already having some bill drafts around equitable access to technology for workforce and health and education. And so hearing all of that, like, okay, this is a movement, and there was this the slowdown that we're in right now, and then we're going to come out of that. And I have to remind myself often that when we were crafting the Digital Equity Act originally, it was during the first Trump administration.
Oh, yeah.
And so it wasn't then until with the pandemic that folks were like, we need something to help people be able to get online. And then Murray's office was like, hey, look, we already wrote it. It's right here. Right. So that's very much encouraging me, like, okay, let's get some stuff written now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
so
this recognition with AI, because AI is like everywhere, the recognition that we can't leave out whole groups of people because they don't regularly use the internet, or they don't feel safe, or they don't have the right device. Like, we can't leave people out of this economy that we say is increasing at a pace we've never seen before. I think that's all very real, and we have to be ready for the opportunities. And that's what we're doing right now.
Okay, got it. And sorry for interrupting you. But so you mentioned bills being introduced, and there was a bill introduced over this past month, the Digital Equity Foundation,
Digital Opportunity Foundation Act.
Thank you.
I know. I say it to myself repeatedly to make sure I get it right.
Thank you. It was Senator Ben Ray Lujan, right, who introduced that?
Yes, and Markey and Matsui.
Okay, right. Okay, great. So not a bipartisan bill from those names, but tell me a bit about what that bill would do, what it's modeled after, and where it stands at the moment.
Yeah. So the idea being that the federal government would seed a foundation. Where that money comes from is still to be determined. Obvious sources could be when USF, I say when, not if, when the Universal Service Fund gets reformed. That could be a source. Spectrum proceeds could be a source. But really the important piece is that it get established, get seated with this funding, have representation from government on the governing board, and then be able to go out and find philanthropy sources to shore it up. we don't have we have a problem in terms of not only is the government right now not investing in digital inclusion programming, but philanthropy for the most part is not doing much either. They seem to think somebody else is doing it. They seem to think it's solved. There's a lack of knowledge about this. I think there's a lack of understanding about how much the use of use of technology impacts other issues. So, like if you care about healthcare, well, how are people talking to their doctor? How are they able to use that amazing? My neighbor was just telling me about this amazing gadget her husband's on, that when his heart starts going a little wacky, the nurse gets notified immediately. It's the same thing my dad was on, like 17 years ago, except it's much better now.
Right.
But all of those gadgets that are out there, like who is helping people? Like he has kids my neighbor has kids who can help him set that up. But if you don't, then what does that mean for your quality of life? Yeah. Anyhow, I think that's the shift right now.
Got it. Okay. And are you optimistic about this bill? Obviously, there's not realistic hope of it getting passed and signed into law in the next few months.
I think we have to get these bills written, and on the books.
Yeah. Got it.
And then when opportunity presents itself, we'll be ready, just like it happened with the Digital Equity Act.
And do you think a bill like this would be useful regardless of what happens with this $2.75 billion in funding?
Oh, absolutely. The $2.75 billion was just to get us started. In fact, there's about $2 billion left.
Right. Yeah. Some of that went into the planning funding.
And for the digital equity staff in all the state offices. Yes. Yeah. So it's about $2 billion, and it is the intention of it. What I thought it was going to accomplish was building out the ecosystems. It had evaluation plans where you could use a whole year at the end of so it was a four-year programmatic grant and then a fifth year of evaluation. So we could still learn so much from these that can influence having the most effective practices documented to know how we could serve even more people with less funding, because this issue is never going away. Are we like, okay, technology's done changing, we can all just stop figuring out the next new thing? No, it's never going to change. All of us are always behind, and it becomes just harder and harder to keep up.
Yeah, and that's only going to get dramatically more insane with AI.
With AI tools
taking over. Right. I was just trying to explain to my mom that she needs to be very careful in terms of what kind of requests are coming through, and to her phone, and we need a code, and whatever. I'm just. So yeah, she could use a digital equity program.
I told her the same thing. She's like, but I have you. Okay.
No. Okay. I want to get you out of here in a couple of minutes. So, just a quick question. I'm just wondering if states have stepped up in their efforts to fill in the blanks. Are there any initiatives that you've seen that are particularly notable?
We are seeing states step up. And so, in fact, right now, NDIA, I would give everybody a little heads up. We are finalizing a digital equity model legislation that we have written, looking at what states are already doing and what we would suggest. Because if the federal government isn't going to be serving this need, the states have to step in, and some of them are. We've seen New York, California, some others. Massachusetts has some great legislation that's in process. We've seen them dedicate funding for digital actual programming, right? So helping people with that digital navigation or that one-on-one kind of support. I think it's also fascinating to watch what's going on in New York with the $15 service that's required of the internet service providers. There still needs to be some more outreach on that, which is always a challenge. But I think the fact that they have it established and the administration tried to have it shut down and they failed, so it is staying, and that's so exciting because there's a lot to learn from that. And it's not that I think every state should have their own, because that will get really chaotic, but we could learn a lot from the states who are doing this, so that when we can convince the federal government and it can be more across the country, we have some best practices and lessons learned to base it on.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. Great point. And one last question for
Oh,
you.
and New Mexico, we should give.
Yes. Well, so New Mexico has
doing.
basically created its own version of the Affordable Connectivity Program, right? And I don't know if it's
amazing.
going into effect now or next month.
That I actually don't know when it's. I will find out. That's something I should know. So I will find out the answer.
Same. It's all good. There's a lot of moving parts. I'm a little bit over in terms of how long I wanted to keep you, but if it's okay, I would love to just close out with the BEAD program, where things stand. BEAD is sort of slowly moving along with a lot of remaining open questions about where things are. Basically, at the moment, half of BEAD's $42 billion are going toward deployment, and the other half are supposed to be going toward non-deployment. But the NDIA has not released its guidance on that yet. So I guess my question for you is, how are these endless delays with BEAD and this cloud over non-deployment funds impacting your efforts in this space even more?
Yeah, it's really frustrating because Congress had already defined that those funds could be used for broadband adoption, and it would have been a way for the states. They wouldn't be able to fully fill the gaps, but they would be able to do a lot towards implementation of their digital equity / opportunity plans. So it's really just holding things up right now, and yeah, the frustration level is significant.
Well, that's a perfect way to end this, I think.
No, we have to end on something happy, Nicole. We can't.
Okay, fine. Angela, tell me how you think this digital equity space is going to be looking like, let's say, a couple of years from now.
I think in a couple of years, we will see the resurgence into the issue. Not because it's magically going to happen, but because so many people are actively working towards that right now. And it's not just NDIA. And that's really what just gives flight to my wings, right? Is that there are so many people who recognize the importance of this issue that we'll get there.
Okay, that's a better way to leave it. We'll get there. Thank you so much, Angela. Always a pleasure to talk with you, and good luck with the oral arguments. Keeping your mouth shut.
Exciting. It's going to be so hard.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you again, Angela, for joining me. Thank you as well to Pierre Landriau for editing this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Light Reading Podcast for more episodes of The Divide, as well as interviews and insights from the Light Reading team. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.